All right, back at it here as we kick off this week, this Monday, and move through the big topics that you are paying attention to. Joining me is Judge Phil Ginn. He is the president in Southern Evangelical Seminary, ses.edu, if you want to know more. What New York City has to look forward to coming January 1. We've talked about the taxes. We've talked about the elimination of police in favor of social workers. But what else is going to happen? Judge, thank you for being here.
Always my pleasure, Steve. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. All right. So anti-Semitism is moving into the mayor's office, apparently, and a lot of other places throughout his administration. What can we expect in New York City beginning January 1 when Mamdani is sworn in as the new person in charge of Gotham?
Well, I think a key word may be destabilization. If that's even possible in New York, I think it's already occurred to some extent, but I think that's probably the goal of what the new mayor is going to be about.
So when you say that, what are we talking about? What are we going to look at here? Destabilization. Look, the police department, one of the premier anti-terrorist operations inside the NYPD, best in the world, by the way, ever since 9/11. The NYPD became very, very good at rooting out terrorism, as an example. Apparently, the mayor wants to get rid of that. That is foolish, reckless, and dangerous, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is, and group hugs just don't normally work with gangs and terrorists and that sort of thing. But what I mean by destabilization is it's a classic tactic of socialists and other folks who would be subversive in regard to a government like we have in the country. And what they want to see is all of the different entities within our government begin to break down so that chaos ensues, and then they come in with a supposed answer to the problem. And it happened in Nazi Germany. I think a lot of times, Steve, folks, and when it comes to socialism, focus on the economics of it. And I'm not sure that's the key with socialists in America, because our economy has been fairly robust and continues to be fairly robust.
But the problem, Judge, if I may be so bold here, for young people, those that are in that 18 to 30, the Gen Zers, right, in that 18 to 30 age range, they don't think it's affordable. The economy's not working for them. They feel like they've not been heard. And look, my take on it's pretty straightforward. The same vein that Donald Trump tapped into, so did Mamdani. Hey, let me help you with your rent payment. Let me help you with making more money. Let me help you not struggling to make ends meet at the end of the month. I mean, the approach is completely different, obviously, but that's what these young people, 82% of the young women who voted in the New York mayoral election voted for Mamdani. 82% of young women voting for the socialists. I don't think they've been very well educated, but here we are.
Well, that's part of the destabilization with the educational process. And part of it is certainly real. I know that I've got children and grandchildren, and it's tough for them to get started. Still, it's better than it is in most countries that you go to for young people, because they've got at least a shot at it here in coming around. But what you see is this fight between fascism, if you want to call it that, and communism. And you remember in Germany, the greatest opponent of communism was, or Nazism was communism. And so then you get to the bottom line, the Nazi regime was socialist in its nature as well. So there's not a lot of difference between the end result of fascism and communism. And that's
Agreed.
what the fight's over now.
You know, I don't think there's left and right. I think there's a circle of politics. I've never seen the left, because they meet at some point. As you just pointed out, Judge, they do meet at some point. Look, one of the most remarkable exchanges I've seen recently of the late Charlie Kirk talking to a college kid who was studying economics, had never heard of Milton Friedman, had never heard of Thomas Sowell. How are we teaching people about anything if they don't know about these things? The Great Leap Forward, 1958-59 China, led by Mao Zedong, where 50 million Chinese died. I've asked young people, what do you know about the Great Leap Forward? They're like, what is that? They don't even know, Judge. We're not educating people about anything. And Thomas Jefferson was clear, you need a well-educated electorate. We don't have that. It's a dangerous time.
We've we've certainly done a lot to almost satanic in what has occurred with Generation Z. I mean, you look at what we've taught them in school. You look at all of the different factors that have come into play with them, and ultimately saw a statistic the other day that's just startling. We've aborted 28% of Generation Z.
Oh
So
my gosh, I've never heard that statistic. That's startling and chilling. 28% aborted.
28%, and that's almost a third, obviously. And yet, you mentioned something in passing that I think is so important, Steve. It's this generation that may save us from ourselves. I
Or it
see
won't.
this generation reacting in a way that is different from previous generations, and that I see a revival breaking out in this generation.
Well, there is that, and there's people argue about the word revival. I don't care what you want to call it, a reawakening, a reimagining, a revival,
How about
whatever it is.
resurrection?
Well, I like that word. There's a 15% increase in church attendance. There's a 40% increase in Bible sales. There's an 80% increase in downloads of Christian apps on people's phones and computers. Something's happening, Judge. That's for sure.
It is. They're oftentimes not sure what they're looking for, but they're looking for something different. You look at what's happening in Mexico. I mean, it's almost a revolution in Mexico, and it's coming from Generation Z, and they're just tired of being controlled by the cartels and wanting their
Well, they're
government
looking.
to
Here's what I think they're
wake
looking
up.
for, Judge. I think they're looking for truth. Truth.
Absolutely. And
After so
and
much garbage has been peddled on social media and elsewhere, these young people want absolute black and white truth. Enough of them anyway to make a difference. I think you're right.
I just see it coming. I live in a college town here in Boone, North Carolina. 22,000 kids on Appalachian State University campus, and now we're seeing a major return to church that matters. Not just the churches we've been doing it in the past, where there's not a lot of content, but they're looking for something that they can sink their teeth into and hold on to, and that will hold them up. And I think we're going to see a great resurrection. In fact, if you look at the anecdotal issues around our college campuses, you look at Auburn, you look at Ohio State University, it just goes on and on. Florida State University. Uh, and these are student led. They're not coming from this resurrection is not coming from the church. It's coming from the students themselves.
Yeah. There's a big change coming, Judge. I think you're right. We need to educate people, give them truth, give them the opportunity, give them hope. Maybe that's what it is. Judge, thank you for being here.
It's always my pleasure, Steve. Look forward to the next time.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, maybe it's hope. And maybe that's what Gen Z is looking for, hope and opportunity. Think about these things because it's important. They are going to decide the future. And you better work hard to make sure it's a future that you think. Look, you've been around for a while. So have I. We need to make sure they choose wisely. So we need to educate them at home, at school, wherever we can talk to them. I'll take a break. It's the Steve Gruber Show.